The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Today is Monday. It is April 22nd. We are getting towards the end of Autism Awareness Month and it has been quite a month. There's still quite a lot of events that are left to take place during this month, but some really exciting things. We were at the Los Angeles Walk Now for Autism on Saturday. We're going to be talking a little bit about that today. But so thrilled to be here with you live for the next 2 hours talking about all things autism. We really try to take a 360-degree perspective for autism to look at it from all of the different angles, whether you yourself are an individual on the autism spectrum or you're a parent, teacher, practitioner, caregiver for an individual who is on the autism spectrum. We know you have questions and concerns and thoughts and things to share, things that could help the rest of us, and we encourage you to participate in this fully interactive show. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can interact on the screen, and I'm going to talk to you about the fact that there's only one place to watch us live. It's at www.autism-live.com. When you go there, there's a desktop, there's a box, and it says questions we're answering right now. We had some difficulty with that box last week, but it's fully operational this week. We look forward. I missed you guys last week. I missed having an opportunity to that back and forth last week, so I hope you'll take advantage of it and remind me that you're out there this week. Make sure that you just put your cursor in that box, type away, hit enter. It shows up magically here on my screen when it works, and it is working right now. There is no login. There is no credit card. It is all free. We're not asking for your name. In fact, if you write something in and you want us to get back to you, you'll need to write in and tell me the information that we can get back to you, and I will not post that for everybody else to see. I have a way of editing that out before I post for everyone else to see. So I hope that you'll interact with us. It really adds to the show. It's very reinforcing for us. We talk about what's reinforcing for our kids. Well, it's very reinforcing for us when you interact with us in the live format. And I think you guys add so much to the show. I like to tell everybody I gave up mind reading to be an autism mother because that's what I am. I am not an expert in autism, and I am not an expert in the law and IEPs and nutrition and all these other things. But I'm a mom. My child was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He is now 9. He'll be 10 in just a couple of months. I just can't believe how fast the time goes. But I am in the really wonderful position that my child is doing very well. He does not yet qualify for a recovered diagnosis, but he moves closer to that every day. And his world and how he is negatively impacted by autism, I can honestly say to you, it is so minimal that days and weeks go by before something comes up and we go, oh, there's the autism. And if you had asked me when he was 2.5 on the day that he got diagnosed, if I thought that was possible or even knew that that was possible, I just would have cried. I just would have cried in a lump. And how we got from there to where we are now is from a whole lot of support, people telling us, here's the path that you want to go down, here's who you need to talk to about this, here's what you got to do next. And then putting the time and the work and the effort in and the tears and the heartache and, you know, all those other things along the way. And quite honestly, I will admit that there was a lot of stuff that we let go of, that we said, well, that just isn't going to be important to us. Getting the trophy in the Little League team, maybe that's not this year's event. We'll look at that down the road. And I have always remembered how lucky we got because we were in the right place at the right time to get the information. Because Information is power. Knowledge is power. In fact, we have a blog that we now are writing here, and I'm trying to be on a weekly basis here. And so on our home site, you can go to the blog site. And this week we have a blog that's all about that information and how information is power. And if you are someone, or you've been in the room when somebody has uttered the word, why isn't there more information? If there are things that will help our kids with autism, why isn't it in a format that's readily available, efficient and effective, and cost effective for the whole world? If you've said that, then I'm so glad you're here, because I want to let you know and check out the blog. There is a site, IBT, Institute for Behavioral Training, and they have taken every subject that you could possibly consider having to do with autism, and they are making trainings that are on videos. And what you do is, for a very small price, you purchase the videos so that not only can you watch it, but then your spouse can watch it. And then you send it to your mother-in-law, and you give it to the babysitter, and you say, here's what we're doing with our child, or here's the answer to this question. So often at the walk the other day, I had a parent who said to me, because I introduced myself and said, I'm a parent. And she said, okay, I'm so glad to talk to you. Does your child bite all the time? And we had a conversation about biting. And then I said, but you want to check out these videos for challenging behavior, because I started talking about the function of the behavior. She said, I want to understand what you're talking about, but I don't understand it. I said, it's okay, because we weren't born with this knowledge, right? But you can have access to a whole core of experts, be able to pause, rewind, take notes. And if you have questions about any things that you see at IBT, write in, and then we'll get the expert here and have them answer the question about it. But they're really comprehensive, and the videos start, you can own them and have the right to use them and watch them again and again and again and share them with other people. Some of them are as low as $7.50. $7.50. When I said to this mom, I said, some of them are $7.50, and she said $750, and I said, oh, bless your heart, that's the world that we've all come from, right? No, $7.50. Sometimes you spend that on a magazine, right? So $7, people spend that on a latte, right? $7.50 to have that information and be able to share it with people. And as if that's not good enough, for the month of April, they're 50% off. So pretty amazing, some of the prices for things that you can find there. And they have them in different categories: for clinicians, for practitioners, for teachers, professionals that are in the education field, and then they have them for parents. But guess what else? If you're a parent and you feel like, well, I've done the parent stuff and I need to go the next thing up, I want to be able to help other kids, take the clinician ones. You don't have to have a credential in order to do the trainings. Fabulous. You got to love that. So IBT, and Emily has the site up for you, but if you're listening to the vocal podcast, it's ibehavioraltraining.com. ibehavioraltraining.com. Check that out. The trainings are only 50% off till the end of this month, just for April Autism Awareness Month. But, if you want to, go ahead, purchase a block of them, and then you have them. You don't have to finish them by the end of April, but you'll have access to them for half off. You just can't beat that, right? Very, very exciting. So in any case, and again, once you take the trainings, if you have additional questions, write in and ask us, because we want to know what you guys want to know more about. But a lovely, lovely thing, IBT. All right. We also like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and try to make sense of it in our world. The jargon is so intensive in the beginning that it really can be debilitating, right? You just want to say to somebody, could you please just talk to me as if I'm a parent who's overwhelmed, underslept, and just got on this train, right? Because in the beginning, that's where we all are, right? But I really honestly believe that long term, and it's okay to say that to professionals and say, talk to me as if I didn't go to school for 6 years to learn about autism before today. But I do think it's important along the road to pick up the different jargon terms and begin to understand them one little bit at a time, so that you're more effective and more efficient. And that you understand, the more I learn these jargon terms, the more I get why they use them, because they're so specific. And it does save time term once you know the terms. I know I've gone to the dark side. I actually like the jargon now. So today's term is one that we use here a lot on the show and that you'll hear experts say. It's manding. And the first time that I heard somebody say this, I was 100% sure that they were saying it wrong, that it was some word that my ear wasn't quite getting. But you see it there in print, manding. And we talk about the mand, getting a child to mand. So let's take a look at what our actual definition is. Manding, it's a type of verbal behavior that is controlled by a motivating operation, deprivation, or an aversive state, and is followed by specific reinforcement. The mand specifies its own reinforcer. Well, hallelujah, and there it is. Now we all know what manding is, right? This is why I was so adamant when we started this show about why we need to take the jargon apart, because you can't find manding in the Webster's dictionary. And then if you go on the internet and look up manding, this is what it tells you. And you go, okay, all right, what's a motivating operation? What do you mean by a deprivation or aversive state? And what does it mean the man specifies its own reinforcer? And that's, ladies and gentlemen, why we do this segment. So let's take a look at our working definition. What is manding? Manding is requesting, demanding. See where that word mand comes from? Demanding or asking for something. So when we start to work with a child who has not previously been vocal or even verbal, and the difference between vocal and verbal, because a lot of times we use the term nonverbal for children, but remember that even using your finger and pointing, that's a form of being verbal. But what we see in small children, all small children, until they have some way of communicating with us, they're going to cry and they're going to tantrum in order to get their needs met. It's just the way of the world. If you think about it, it makes sense, because when they came out, they cried, and we picked them up, and we held them, and we did things. They cried, and we would do the rundown of, all right, I'm gonna jiggle, I'm gonna check the diaper, I'm gonna feed, I'm gonna check the temperature, I'm gonna pay attention to the child, and somewhere in the mix there, the child stops crying. Woohoo! It's all good. The child got their needs met by crying. This doesn't miraculously go away. It eventually gets supplanted by communication. But what if the communication doesn't come on its own, which is the case for a lot of our kids on the spectrum? So what happens is the child is bigger, their needs are more concise, they're going to start throwing bigger and bigger tantrums. They're not just going to cry in the crib, they're going to start throwing stuff, biting people, hitting people, kicking people, screaming, all kinds of things. So if we can get manding in place where they can request, demand, or ask for something, we're going to diminish that challenging behavior. We're also going to find a pathway using manding, because we know there's stuff they want. We're going to use manding to start to facilitate that functional communication, because it doesn't matter where your child is on the spectrum. It doesn't matter what their double and triple diagnosis, comorbid considerations are. We want to teach all of our kids functional communication, how to tell us that they want something. We're not going to get a happy kid unless they're capable of communicating with us and telling us what they need. And we also want to be able to communicate with them, but manding is the first step because there's a desire built in there, right? So imagine with a neurotypical kid, what a parent starts to do is, they hold up the cookie and they go, cookie, say cookie, and the child goes, cook, and they give the child the cookie. Eventually, they're going to get that to be cookie and then cookie, right? And that child is manding. When they're doing anything, if they point, if they say a sound, if they gesture towards it, use a sign for cookie, that is manding. We're going to make sure that we are specific with a child on the autism spectrum. And what we're really going to do is target manding in the beginning, which means we're going to give them the skills to ask for it, and we're going to teach that. And then anytime they ask for something, we're going to give it to them. Remember that part in the actual definition where it said the man specifies its own reinforcement? So what that means is whatever they asked for is the reinforcer. So the child asks for the cookie, they get the cookie. The cookie is the reinforcement. And when we set up with manding to make that happen for a child, that they're asking for something and we give it it to them, it really builds a basis for teaching all things. Because if you think about it, if all you had to do was ask for something and you got it, you'd want to start asking for more stuff, right? Even if it was hard for you to ask for more stuff, you'd want to do it because it's worthwhile. It takes so much less energy once you understand, if I point, I get the cookie, than throwing yourself on the floor and screaming and crying. And even our kids get that. Even our kids who have endless energy, once they understand, if I just go, and I get the cookie, I'll do that. That's quicker. I get quicker to my reward. And of course, over time, we shape that up into not just saying, but saying k, and then cook, and then cookie, and then from there, I want cookie. Can I have a cookie, please? And building into other things. But manding is when our child requests something, and then we want to make sure we reinforce it by giving it to them. In the beginning, when we're working on manding, we're not as concerned about other things. Like you might think, oh, well, I don't want to endlessly feed my child cookies. Great. Cut the cookie up into little pieces, but keep giving it. You know, we don't worry as much about, we want to keep the child safe, right? But when we're working on manding and targeting in the beginning, if the child asks for something, if it's within our possibility and safe, we need to give it to them. Later on, we can work on the fact that every time you ask for something, you don't get it. But we need to get manding on board. I was talking about the magic X. The more you see manding go up on a chart, you'll see the child's challenging behavior go down in direct proportion. That magic X, it's when life gets good. If you've got a child who's tantruming, you get manding on board. Oh, it's an entirely different thing. Oh, it's an amazing thing. Okay, so that's our jargon for the day. Moving on, we always have a question of the day for you. Our question today: what is your child's most challenging behavior? What is going on in your home right now that is really kicking your can? What's the thing? We already got some questions coming in here. Great. We're going to deal with some of these in just a little while. But what's going on that's really kicking your keister? Because I sent out an email on Monday to all the experts who are going to be on the show, and we set up all the things we're going to talk about. So somebody has already written in and said, how do I teach my daughter respect? And she's 15 years old. So I'm going to put that on the agenda, and I send it out to the experts, and I'll let you know which day we're going to be covering that on. And we will talk about it a little bit with our guests that are in here as well today. Because Monday has sort of become our day when we talk about the older kids on the spectrum. We have some exciting guests for you today, and we're going to talk about those teenage and young adulthood issues. So perfect kind of thing, and we'll make sure to ask our guests about that as well. But really interested to know from you guys, so important if you let us know on Facebook, what's the most challenging behavior that you're dealing with right now? And I always try to answer the question myself. And I've shared a little bit that my son is going through this phase right now. Well, two things right now, that he just thinks swearing is hilarious. I can't imagine where he got that from. This is the biggest joke, because I am somebody who's quite capable of watching my language. I taught for years and taught college, and I have students who don't understand that I can swear like a Russian sailor. And I do. And my child thinks that it is just the most hilarious thing on the planet. And so it's a problem. That's a bit of a problem that I caused. So I have that going on, and we're starting to target that. But also we have this thing going on right now where anytime that I do something even remotely silly, he says to me, "You're embarrassing me." And it doesn't matter if we're by ourselves. Everything I do embarrasses him. And, you know, I mean, I guess this is a quality problem because he's taking perspective, but when people aren't even there, he's upset about it and says it's just humiliating how you're behaving. And so we're trying to create some flexibility that I get to still be my own person and behave the way that I do, and that I get to be silly occasionally, because Dad can be silly. Dad is allowed to be as silly as he wants, but even this morning, I was doing his hair. He had a concert this morning at school that he was singing in, and I was trying to do his hair, and I was being a little silly with him, and he was like, "Mom, you gotta stop. Stop it. You're embarrassing me." And I'm going, "Who else is here? It's you and me and Dad. How embarrassed can you be?" He's like, "I just don't." So I need to work with him a little bit on being able to tolerate other people, namely Mom, and mom humiliating him when no one else is there. It's definitely a thing. But how nice is my life that these are the challenging behaviors that I have to work on? Because if I had answered this question 7 years ago, it would have been biting me, screaming, laying down when we're someplace and doing civil disobedience because he didn't want to go someplace, turning over the shopping cart in the grocery store, staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning and not being able to get him to sleep. I mean, the list, endless list. So I fully acknowledge that I have quality problems now, but there still are issues, right? But I'd love it if you guys would write in, because that will be what we talk about all week long, because our topic this week is, in fact, challenging behavior. We cycle through and go through a bunch of different topics, but I come back to challenging behavior because, first of all, we all have something going on in the home, right? No matter where your child is on the spectrum. In fact, no matter if your child isn't on the spectrum, there's always something going on, right? Some hurdle you have to get over, because that's called growth and development. But I think a lot of times for autism parents, we slide into this mode of acceptance, not in a good way, of going, well, that's just the autism. And sometimes I'm guilty of this as well, where we go, well, but he has autism, so we're going to see a certain amount of that. And that is just a steaming pile of poo. It isn't accurate. We have the ability to change all those behaviors, build skills, and diminish challenging behavior. So for all of you, and my heart bleeds sometimes when I'm on Facebook and I hear people who are writing in and saying, well, my child's doing this or that or whatever, and I really want to get the word out. There's help, and you don't. Acceptance is a wonderful thing, but not when it comes to challenging behavior. With challenging behavior, we really want to get our running shoes on and get ready to affect some change, because we can, and when we do, we have the opportunity to enjoy our lives better. If it's a child that we're working with, we have an opportunity to enjoy them more. But it doesn't matter if it's an adult that we're working with. We all want to enjoy our lives and enjoy our relationships. And when we target challenging behavior in a really positive way, we have the ability to do that. So I get very excited about the possibilities when we talk about challenging behavior. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, we have our wonderful guest this morning. We're just calling her Holloway now. Monica Holloway is here with us. She is the amazing author of Cowboy and Wills, and such a light, and also the mom of a teenager on the autism spectrum. Can't wait to talk to her today about some of the things that they have going on, and the fact that she just got back from the East Coast, and we're going to talk about what she was doing there. But an amazing mom. So we'll talk with her a little bit about how, because I have met her son, and he is the most respectful young man. I mean, I'm sure I only got to see a little window of time with him, but a lovely, lovely person. So we'll talk with Monica about how she achieved that. We've got a stress tip for you. And then a little bit later today, we have Alex Plank from wrongplanet.net who'll be joining us. I mentioned on Friday that Alex wasn't going to be able to be with us because he was going to be on set, but they pushed back his call time. So fortunately, we are going to be joined by him in the second hour. And we can talk to Alex, who is a young man who is on the spectrum and spends a great deal of time hanging out with teenagers and young people who are on the spectrum about that respect issue and so much more. So keep your questions in. We got some great, great guests for you. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Monica Holloway. Stick with us. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some guesses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest here with us in the studio, Monica Holloway. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, always.
No, it's totally ours. I know this for a fact. And we have to start with, first of all, by reminding everybody that Monica is a brilliant author, and most familiar to a lot of us for Cowboy and Wills, a fabulous, fabulous book that if you haven't read, you really need to. I do think it is like the enjoyable autism book to read. Do you know, I mean, there's so many autism books out there that you got to kind of have to dig in and sit down and work your way through it. And there's some really good autism books that are out there like that. But yours is the enjoyable one.
Well, thank you.
And heart-wrenching and beautiful and funny. I always like to remind people that it's funny because honestly, there are less than 5 books that I've ever read that I laughed out loud, and yours is one of them.
Oh, thank you, Shannon.
Such a thrill now to be able to sit and talk with you, because I read your book and was like, okay, this woman is amazing and fabulous. But Monica is also a mom, and that's like at the top of your credentials.
I'm number 1, a mom.
And the mom of a teenager.
Right. So I'm number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 a mom, I guess.
There you go.
We both are.
And we're now starting to call Monday our sort of older day, where we focus on older issues, because Alex Plank joins us on Mondays as well, too.
I like so much.
Isn't he wonderful?
Oh my gosh, I've met him and I've liked him before, but I didn't really get to see him until you were having your head shaved. And got to talk to him sort of between takes, too. Yeah. And what a wonderful person he is.
Yeah, he really is. I thoroughly enjoy him as a person. We were at the Autism Walk here in Los Angeles on Saturday, and I didn't realize realized that you weren't going to be there, and we'll talk about why you weren't there. But Alex was there and interviewing people, and I was in a big hurry to get home, and then I just sat down, and he was eating a burrito after it was all over, and I just wanted to sit and enjoy Alex for a few minutes.
Oh.
Because you know what? He and your son, whenever I get to be around kids who are older, and I see how happy and well-adjusted they are, it gives me the energy to get through some of the stickier things now.
Oh, heavens, yes.
And to realize that I don't have to be afraid of those teen years, because I am. I'm petrified of the teen years.
I'm still scared. I mean, Wills is about to be 16 on May 17th is his birthday, so I'm right in the middle of it. So I'm still very nervous and scared.
But I was
excited.
I was saying before we came back to the live segment, I was saying that you look like you have it all together. You absolutely look like you have it all together, and it looks to me like Wills is doing a great job, and it looks like you're doing a great job with him. So,
well, thanks. I think we all do the best that we can, but I mean, the mistakes are plentiful, and I have it. You know what I have that I've not had a lot of throughout my life? I'm less anxious than I used to be, even as a kid. And I think that has to do with my age and feeling a little bit more secure in just my lifestyle and money. Not like I have tons of money, but, I'm not like worried about the rent like I used to be.
Right.
And some of that stuff has settled me down, and some of it I just know, I've been through a lot of things. So I think, the things that come at me, I'm sometimes better at picking and choosing what to get freaked out about. Yeah. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes the little things really, really freak me out anyway.
Well, if they didn't, I would be checking your pulse. Right? Right?
That's right. But I think for me, I'm trying, and I hope I'm better at feeling good in the mess, because I wasn't good at that.
Yeah.
And, I'm... Not to bring it up yet, because it's not coming out just yet. But my new book is called "There Goes Perfect," because I wanted perfect so much. I thought if I didn't have it all together, if I wasn't looking perfect, especially looking that way, my house looked this way, my car was clean. If my car was clean somehow, even if my house was a mess, but my car was clean, I felt like I was going to be okay. I don't know why. And now I'm really able to tolerate mess more and to sit in some confusion, even about my own life and myself, and be able to say to somebody, I don't know why. I don't know why I feel that way, or I don't know why I did that. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it is. And people say, okay, I think people want me to say yes or no. Like, I get this or I don't get it. But when I've been lately saying, I have no idea, they say, I know.
Yeah.
I know, me too. And that's a very powerful place to live. I mean, maybe it doesn't sound like it, but...
No, but it is, and I think it gives all of us permission to not be perfect.
Right.
And for us to not know, too, when somebody else says that. That's always such a relief to me when I'm with somebody who just lets it all down and goes, well, I'm having this kind of a day, and it is what it is, and I go, oh, gosh, I can take a breath and not have to pretend.
Right.
Which is a powerful thing.
And there's a place between, having terrible news and falling apart and it being appropriate or inappropriate, but a crisis situation, and being so happy that everything's perfect.
Right.
And that gray area, my therapist has been working on for, how old am I? Like 50 years that she's been working on this. I'm saying, the gray area is where you want to be so that you have room to sort of go this way if things go badly, and this way if things are better.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's just relearn. And that's what I've been just working so hard on writing about, which is one of the reasons I was gone past week, was to work on that book. But this idea of, and the book isn't about this is how you don't be perfect. The book is about, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
All I know is that this is better. And it's more, I'm not crazy about this word, but it is more authentic for me.
I can't wait to read this book.
Well, yeah, me too. I'm sorry. I don't, it's not even
and we were saying
yet.
Right before we came back to break that I have not had a chance to read your first book either. Tell us about your first book.
Oh, okay. My first book is called Driving with Dead People.
Right.
So I did have a little stint of driving a hearse, mostly my best friend.
Of course you did.
Yes, of course. Mostly my mortician friend's daughter, who was my best friend, she drove the hearse, and I smoked, basically.
All right.
But we would go to the airport and pick up the bodies of people that had died from out of town and bring them back. And that's really all we did.
I can't wait to read this book.
It's also called Driving with Dead People because for many years of my life, I had a very, I would say, violent home, and not just physical, but mostly verbal, and there was some physical violence too, and nobody knew this about my house. But when my book came out, and so anyway, Driving with Dead People was also about like living with ghosts in my head, like the people that were no longer in my life, that I said, you know what, you can't be in my life because I can't be healthy with you in my life. Or I forgive you, but you can't be in my life.
Right.
Or I can't forgive you. I hope someday I will, but you can't be in my life.
Right.
And other people saying, you can't be in my life. You're just a little out there, a little... and I finally wrote this book about... so the title originally came from me thinking about driving back to my hometown with all these ghosts in my car, because I really drove more than I flew anywhere. I was nervous about flying or trains. So I would drive back there. I would kick open the doors of my car and say, everybody out. All the people in my head... get out, because they aren't in my life anymore. Then I would close my doors, leave those ghosts behind, and head west to California, where I ended up, without them. And say, who am I now? Let's start now. Let's not worry about that, dragging all that with me through the years anymore. Leave it there if you can, and drive on. Now, that doesn't mean every day they stay back there. And they might not even be people anymore. It's just ideas or thoughts about myself.
It's the old tapes sometimes.
It is.
Yeah.
That is all it is.
Yeah.
In actuality, that's all it is, because there's really no one in my life that actively hurts me.
Wow.
So, and I mean... I don't even think that they wanted to actively hurt me. I think that no one knew what the heck was going on in their lives, and so we all hurt each other. I mean, they hurt us, and then as kids growing up, we got very confused. So, but I hope it's a funny book. It's funny, but it's also it is a little dark, but. It's one of my, I'm proud of it, I have to say, because it was hard for me to come out and admit what had happened to me as a child, and once I did, I was surprised. Some of my childhood friends would say to me, I wondered, you were always telling stories, like you were always making things up, and I wondered why. Wow. And I said, I didn't want to live in reality. I didn't want to be... And I also wanted to be noticed and have all this attention and be, I had a lot of troubles.
Wow. And a great sense of humor that came through all of it, which I find is often the case with people who've been through stuff, because it's a coping mechanism.
Well, I was lucky for that. I mean, some of my siblings didn't have that, but I think you're born with that or you're not, and I got really lucky.
Yes. Well, you are a very funny individual.
Oh, thanks.
I gotten to interview your husband when we interviewed the two of you via Skype, but I haven't actually met your husband. But you're two of the funniest people around.
Thank you.
So, which is a lovely thing. To me, that's the highest compliment if somebody's funny. So that's Driving with Dead People, and can we get that on Amazon?
Sure. Yes.
Oh, I'll get it today.
Yeah, it's in paperback, or I think it's a little cheaper as a iBook or an ebook.
Oh, it'll be on my Kindle today.
Or I can bring it to you, which I would love to give you a copy.
Well, I would love that too. I love reading things on the Kindle, but I also love to hold a book too. There's nothing better than holding a book. I hope they don't totally get rid of books.
Oh, I know.
But I do like being able to carry like 300 books with you in one little thing.
I know. On the airplane, I was just reading whatever I was in the mood to read for however long I wanted. I was just scrolling through my iPad, and then I left it on the airplane.
You left your iPad on the airplane?
I left my iPad on the airplane, and Wills, my son Wills, and my husband were going to the batting cages last night because I went to bed super early when I got home, and Wills called the house to say, JetBlue just called and they have your iPad.
Oh, nice.
Which was unbelievable. It must have toppled out of my bag when I got out of my seat, and they had it, and I'd written all these pages for my new book, and I was like, oh, thank you.
Oh, that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Well, we should take a break, and then first we're going to come back and talk about why you were on the East Coast. Okay. And then we'll talk about some other stuff. So stick with us, and if you have questions for Monica, we are going to ask her about teaching respect before we let her go, because that was a question that somebody wrote in about how do I teach respect to my 15-year-old daughter.
Oh, boy.
Yes. And I also think that there was some stuff on Facebook that Wills might be doing some driving now. We have to talk about that. I always say I'm only going to keep you for like 8 minutes, and then I want to keep you forever.
Oh.
It's a terrible thing. I'm a Monica Holloway pig.
Oh, boy.
I want to take all that I can. Well, let's take a break so we can come back and get to it. Stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with a wonderful autism mom and author, Monica Holloway. So thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
And before I get sidetracked with 38 other things, we want to talk about why you were on the East Coast. And it was a very tumultuous time on the East Coast that you were there. How long were you there for? The last
5 days.
5 days.
The last 5 days. Yes.
Okay, so tell us why you were there, and then we'll talk about everything that happened while you were there.
I went there for the Young Child Expo.
Wonderful.
So the New York, it's a national, I guess it could be international, but I think it's a national, like 1,000 participant conference where they talk about typical kids and atypical kids, or however you want to call it,
right.
Kids with disabilities. They talk about bullying, social skills, all kinds of therapies. So there's professionals, parents, professionals as in therapists and those kinds of people, and then doctors and teachers, everybody, I guess, and lots and lots of parents.
Wow.
So I got to go, I was going to do a session, so I thought, well, I'll probably have about 20 people, which is great, and I had something like 300 people.
Wow.
So when I saw the room, I thought, well, this can't be my room. And I've done keynotes where they've been more than that, but I wasn't expecting that many, and I have to say, I was so touched that many people wanted to come and hear a mom talk, because there were a lot of scientists and doctors and people that I heard speak that that was very, but it also made me feel good that people wanted to come and chat with a mom and sit down and talk and tell me their stories. And a lot of teachers I spoke with, really smart, wonderful men and women who are out there working with our kids and had all these things to ask. And then what was interesting is at the end of my speech, the audio wasn't, or not the audio visual wasn't working. And so I didn't have any of my slides up, or my videos weren't, And I did have a video of, and we'll talk about this in a second, my son's first driving lesson, which was a week ago, Sunday.
Oh my God.
And but I couldn't show all of this. So then afterward, a lot of people came up to talk to me. So we passed the earlier spoken of iPad through the line so people could see the pictures of Cowboy and Wills and the video and all of that. And Wills and I, you should know this too, Wills and I always want to give, and my husband, books to any public library, to any school library, or if there are families that really can't afford a book, then we would be happy to provide a book. But you just need to go on my Facebook page, which would be under Cowboy and Wills, and write us a little note. And then my publicist, Jess Bach, will get a hold of you, and then I'll sign a book for your school library or your public library.
Wonderful.
So we were able to give a lot of books away. And we sold books, but we also gave a lot of books away to different organizations. And that's such a great feeling.
Yeah. Absolutely wonderful.
So that was fun, and I haven't missed the Autism Speaks walk in many, many years. So I was really, on Saturday, I was thinking about all of you,
and we missed you. I can tell you, we missed you, and we, I sort of was looking for you at the press booth, and then we walked over by the Frosted School booth, and I said, Monica's not here. What's going on? And then I went and found Jess, and she said, no, she's got to be on the East Coast. She's got all these things that she's doing, and your presence was missed, but it was a lovely event.
I heard it was really fun.
It really was. It was a tremendous event, and each year it has its own little flavor, and I will say that this year it had its own flavor. I think there were a lot of things that happened last week that were not great, right? I think for the whole nation, for the whole world last week was a little bit of a toughie, and I know there was a thought in my head about what will the walk be like. Will it be hampered by that at all? Will people be afraid? Will people be concerned? And I think there were some considerations. I don't know if it was because of that, but the kickoff to the walk was a little bit different. It was like a soft kickoff because they let people were having a hard time. There was a little bit more security, so people were having a hard time getting into the parking lots, and people needed to leave, and they didn't want it to be an exodus all at the same time, so they were letting people walk early if they wanted to. They basically said to people, we're going to let you do this the way you need to do it.
Oh, wow.
So, and there wasn't as much noise at this one.
Wills would have liked that.
I always love the marching band and everything.
I love that.
And it's cool and it's wonderful.
Go together.
And everybody goes together. But I have to say, this was a little bit different, and I kind of liked it.
And I think Wills would like that better, which is, I guess, really to the point.
Yes, because I always used to say the walk is a bit of a sensory nightmare.
Oh my gosh!
And they do have tents that are like quiet tents that kids can go into, and that the first year that we went, I had to duck into because it was a little too much for me.
Yes.
But because I think I'm a little sensory that way too. The loud noises. My kid does okay in the moment. He melts down later, but in the moment, I find it overwhelming.
Okay.
And Wills finds it a little overwhelming?
Oh, yes, very. He'll usually start out with us walking, and then my husband and I will go, usually my husband, because I'm leading whatever the team is,
right.
He usually goes back to the tent with Michael and then sits quietly and waits.
There you go.
But last year, he was with his good friend Addie, who's a year older than he is, and they were able to go back by themselves with their cell phones to the tent by themselves. So they were really excited, and they were able to get themselves something to drink and a hot dog or something like that. So it was really exciting for them.
You are really in uncharted territory, and I'm watching you so that I can follow in your footsteps, because you talked about the fact that he went on his first little outing with other friends, that they went...
The museum.
Yes.
Right.
And that went all successfully, and then I saw on Facebook that you've taken on driving. and I literally went like... but I'm so thrilled that you're doing it before me so that I can watch you get through it with grace.
And I'm thrilled because then there are people that did it before me, and that's why I'm able to sort of cope with it and deal with it. So, it's the same as it's always been from the beginning of time. It's like I'm a pioneer, you're a pioneer, they're a pioneer, the family's ahead of us, and you and the little ones, I know. And it is... Sometimes it's overwhelming when I'm at a conference or something like this and I hear the parents talking about their kids, and I remember, and they're standing there looking so lost in some ways. And I do just give them a hug. I kind of have chills because I think that's what I needed. I needed somebody just to say, and sometimes I don't want to be hugged, which is fine, but it's like, listen, I don't know if it'll get better, but it is going to change.
Yes.
It is going to change.
Yeah.
And in some ways it'll get better. In some ways it gets like, oh no, I'm dealing with this now. But, you know, I hope this is an appropriate thing to say and that this will be helpful. I have a friend who has a daughter who I believe she was 21 and she was in a very bad car accident. And she was driving and she pulled out of an ice cream place and was hit on her driver's side by a drunk driver.
Oh.
And she had a lot of damage to a lot of brain injury. And so they've been trying to work with her and help her, and she's not the same person she was. Now she's alive, and they are so grateful, and all of those things that are good. They love her, but she's a different child or a different young woman.
Right.
And so I saw this mother last year, and she said she was still in that shock phase, of course, and she said, how do you deal with Will's having autism? I mean, how do you even say, you know, my son has autism? And I said, I was kind of amazed by the question, which was interesting because I thought, I can say this. I can say Will's has brown hair and autism and he likes trains and it does not, it doesn't stop my heart anymore. It doesn't set him apart to me anymore. I worry about him, but I do notice that my friends that have kids that aren't on the spectrum, they worry like I do.
Yeah.
They worry about him driving like I do.
Right.
I think you live with it long enough and you get all this information. And that one aspect, which these young parents or parents of young children are dealing with, the shock of the newness of it, that does get better. That does change.
Absolutely.
And I didn't think it ever would.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I can say to them for sure, that feeling will change.
Yeah.
And you'll really know them. You'll know them.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is a powerful thing.
Yes.
It's a powerful thing.
You won't constantly be surprised in a setting or in a public place or at dinner. Or,
exactly.
It gets a little better.
And that what was so comforting to me in the beginning, and I try to say to people in some way in the conversation, is that everybody survives it in some way. Like, life looks different, but everybody survives it. Because in the beginning, I remember thinking, I don't know that I can do this.
Yes.
I don't know that I can do this. And as I would look around and see other people, and I would go, well, you know, she did it, so there must be a way to do it.
Right.
There must be a way.
And the depression, for me, was immense. And I actually... That's what I didn't think I was going to make it through, was the depression and I had a lot of, and as I'm sure I imagine all parents do, and people I talk to say, yes, I had a lot of guilt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I was like, guilt, you know, and I knew like intellectually I didn't cause this, or I didn't wish this, or I didn't, but still I had a little bit of shame and a little bit of guilt, which then I felt guilty about having.
Sure.
So,
absolutely.
You know, I had to get some help.
Yeah.
I had to go into a group. You know, I will say group therapy helped me a lot, like a group setting, a fellowship at church or whatever you can find where there are other women and men going through this.
Yeah.
It's really helpful.
So helpful.
If you can get away from the child for just a little bit, if it's possible, which was hard when he was little, and get some time with adults that are going through it.
Yeah, but I will say too that I think part of the problem is that once we get into the phase of action and we focus on what am I going to do to help the child, that our needs are somewhere in the ocean, and that's always the point at which I think it was for me and for so many other parents that I know. That's the point in which we need the most help and support.
Absolutely, and that's when my marriage hit the skids. That's when my marriage all of a sudden, and it had been going on for a few years without my realizing that I wasn't focusing at all on my marriage, and neither was my husband.
Yeah.
We didn't think about that.
The kitchen was on fire. You were putting out the fire in the kitchen, and then you don't notice that there's a small smoldering thing in the living room. Same thing for us. I mean, truly.
That's a perfect, exactly.
But, you know, unfortunately, your marriage is still a very happy marriage.
Well, it is now, but I mean, we did have like very bad 3 years where I didn't think I knew that we were going to divorce. It was pretty sure that we were going to therapy. We were living apart.
Wow.
For almost a year, we lived apart. Yes.
Wow.
And that was hard on everybody, and that's what had to happen in our marriage. And it wasn't due to the autism, and I'm not going to get into exactly what it was, but there was a specific problem between the two of us that we worked out, which is really, thank heavens, because I'm crazy about him.
That's a wonderful thing.
And also, you know, it was as hard as it was on Wills that happened, and I didn't think that would ever happen, not to us. You know, that's part of the being perfect thing. But, you know, I was flat out brokenhearted but Wills really understood sort of the grief of that and the coming back together. And sometimes you have to get in the mud and work it out.
Oh yeah.
And it's not pretty.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tears, and there's a lot of forgiveness, and he had to forgive both of us for our role in that, and it's a big deal.
It's a process.
It's a process.
Well, and I'm sure you've heard the expression used in the community: you have to get your dress dirty.
Yes.
Sometimes you just have to get your dress dirty. You just have to get in that mud and get the dress dirty. All right, let's take a quick break and come back, and we really are going to talk about the driving and respect. So stick with us.
Autism used to affect 1 in every 10,000 children. Now it affects 1 in every 91 kids.
TACA is one of 5 organizations helping families living with autism today.
Our kids came back to life. There's a whole community out there, and now we're a part of it.
Oh, TACA has a place for me.
To find TACA, go to www.tacanow.org.
Please.
Welcome back. Our very special guest in the studio right now is Monica Holloway, author of Cowboy and Wills. She's got a new book. When do we expect the new book?
Probably, I think it'll be out before Christmas next year.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. And that's... What is the name of it again?
There Goes Perfect.
There Goes Perfect. I can't wait to see that. And I'm also going to today get on my Kindle your first book, Driving with Dead People. I can't wait to read that.
Oh, thanks.
But we've been talking about the fact that you're the parent of a teenager who's on the autism spectrum and that you braved the first driving test a little over a week ago. I need to know, did you hire somebody else to do it?
Oh, yes. Heavens.
Okay, because I think that's really, really smart. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I'm going to be able to teach my child how to drive.
Well, no, me neither. And I already have, car anxiety when I'm the passenger.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with who's driving. It's just I have my own brake, and I'm constantly hitting my husband's
somebody's
arm.
holding the rail. I'm always holding the rail.
That's my mother-in-law. She's always holding on there, and she's hilarious, but she's always holding that rail. But I did something that you might consider this, especially those of you who live, near we are out here in the valley or in LA. I took Wills up to, is it Lake Casitas in Ohio or Castaic? I get them mixed up. It's Casitas, I think.
I think so.
I think it is. And they rent boats for very cheap. I want to say it's $7 an hour. I mean, it's really cheap.
Right.
And then so we would rent a little fishing boat and take the dogs out. The Goldens out with Wills and Michael and I. We would just putt around the lake. And they have a restroom that floats out there on a dock, which Wills was obsessed with, called the SS Relief.
Okay.
And so when I drove the boat, I hit the SS Relief, and it's a really big lake. So Wills was like, I think I can drive better than that. I said, well, let's see. So out in the middle of the lake, we let him run the motor. And you turn it the opposite of where you're going, and he did great.
Wonderful.
So we came back in. So this was about the last summer, I guess. We saw they had pontoon boats. Do you know what those are? Like
the floaty things?
Yeah, it's like paper, and then it has like little pontoons.
Right.
But they have steering wheels.
Oh.
So I said, hey, let's rent a pontoon boat. Now, those are a little bit more expensive and way tackier. They're not in great shape, but they'll get you out there okay. So again, it was just Wills and I, and Michael was at work, and we had the 2 Goldens, and I couldn't even get it out of the slip.
Wow.
But Wills is 6'4". At the time, he was 6'2", so he looks like a grown-up man. So I said, can you back this out of here? And he's like, me? And I said, I think you'll do better than I'm doing. So he sat down in the chair and got the steering wheel, and he backed it out and went right out into the lake. Didn't hit anything, and we were out there for about 2.5 hours, and the dogs were swimming, and he was driving.
Wow.
And I did that 3 more times before they stopped renting the boats for the year, so that he could get the feel of the steering wheel.
That's wonderful.
And then in the fall, we went to Mammoth at Thanksgiving, and we went to find a lake bed where he could just drive. But he didn't want to do that because he said, that's against the law.
Oh,
and how he's very aware of rules and the law. And I said, well, I kind of learned how to do that sort of in the country, in the fields of the Midwest, where there wasn't anything to hit. And I think they would be okay if you did that. But he said, is it against the law? And I said, yes, it's against the law. So he wouldn't do it, which is fine. And of course I said, oh, I understand. So we'll help you take the written test. And then, so he took his first driving lesson last Sunday morning. And it was very short. And it was somebody that does work with kids on the spectrum, which was great, and had worked with a friend of ours, a young man who actually ended up not wanting to drive. He learned how to drive, he got his license, and then decided he's not a driver, which is kind of great.
It's great. I mean, I know people who are not on the spectrum who've decided that for themselves, and we all appreciate it when somebody says, you know, this is not my forte and I'm not going to do it.
Right. Or if I'm too nervous even, because that is a very legitimate reason not to drive.
Absolutely.
And it's funny, my editor will laugh, and she tells everybody this. She doesn't drive. Yeah. And she lives in Manhattan. But she's like, Wills is doing better than I am. Tell him I'm not driving yet. Yeah. And she's, in her late 30s. So
it's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And how was he about it? Was he nervous, or was he excited, or was it just...
He wasn't as excited as I thought he'd be. Okay. So I think maybe he was a little bit nervous. He wasn't articulating his feelings at the time, which he often does. But he was very... I'd say calmer than usual. So I thought he's just trying to stay focused. And it was in a big parking lot when there were no cars on Sunday morning. So he really had a chance to sort of go forward and back, and they taught him where everything was. And it was great. So then that afternoon, his dad and I, and the dogs, of course, took off for the desert. And we went out near Edwards Air Force Base out there by Mojave. And they did say to Wills, you can practice. Because I said, can we practice in like a riverbed or anything like that? And they said, yeah, if you're way out in the country where nobody is and you're with your parents, only your parents, you can practice driving a little bit with your little permit. So we went out there, and I got out of the car because I thought I would make him nervous, and I didn't want the dogs all over the car.
Right.
So the dogs and I got out in the middle of the desert. Basically, it was nice and cool. That was a beautiful day. It was like 70. And I had a big hat on, and the dogs just ran around, and my bracelet just dropped. And I got to watch Wills from the side of this sort of dirt road drive all around the desert and back up and turn and do all these things. He had the music blasting at some point, and then I think his dad was like, let's just concentrate on the driving. And so I was taking movies with my iPad. Why am I talking about my iPad so much? Anyway, that's what I had in my hand, not my phone. And so I was taking movies of him going by. So I said, Wills, can you go by and turn so I can see the car go by with you on my side?
Right.
So he did that, turned this way and came this way. And then he was driving a little fast, I thought, which I guess was 28 is what he said. I was doing 28. And in my head, as he went by, I was like, well, I didn't think he could flip the car. I only thought he wouldn't hit anything out here, you know? And my husband was like, he was really not even going 30.
Wow.
But that seemed like a lot for a new driver. So he was out there. Yeah, he really practiced, but he hasn't wanted to do it since. And even though I've been gone, he could have done a lesson this weekend, and he decided no, he was going to play baseball and relax, and he didn't want to visit it again so soon.
Interesting.
So we're going to wait until next Saturday.
I was a kid who was not excited about driving. My mother was like, you will learn how to drive so that you can go to the grocery store for me. Because my sister was going to go to college, and I was not excited about it.
What made you so nervous?
Well, you know what? I get car sick on a stationary bicycle. Like, I literally, movement of any kind is, so I was nervous about that, and was I going to get car sick while I was driving? And it's a big, heavy thing that has the potential to hurt people. It's a responsibility.
Right.
And so when I was 16, I was really cautious about it. I didn't see the fun in it. I didn't see what was all that reinforcing about it. So I was a reluctant driver. Now, eventually, I fell in love with driving. But in the beginning, and my mother was like, I've never seen a kid who wasn't excited to go and get their driver's license and everything, but I wasn't. It wasn't something. And of course, what I eventually discovered was that I was less car sick driving.
Right. Because when you're driving,
than sitting. But I didn't really believe that, because what did I have to base that on?
Right.
If you were in the simulator, they used to, right when I was in high school, they got rid of the simulators in school, but I
didn't have a simulator.
Yeah, my sister got to learn 2 years ahead of me on a simulator, but the one time I sat in a simulator, it made me car sick. So I didn't think that it was going to be this big, exciting thing.
Right.
At all. But
it's
eventually,
amazing at 16, though, that you thought of other people and thought of the danger of it. And all I thought about was, wow, I can't wait till I can go fast. I was very reckless too. I think I was, but I had, 3 siblings were ahead of me.
Yeah,
they were driving everywhere.
Well, that was the thing. My sister drove me everywhere. I could get wherever I wanted to because my sister would take me places. So
I didn't know. Nobody wanted to take anybody anywhere. They just wanted to go on their own. So, and we lived really far out in the country. So town was 7 miles away. So to get anywhere, like practice or fun times or the Pizza King, you needed a lift.
Yeah, and see, I wasn't seeing it. But we're past time, and we have to. But I want to talk about respect really quickly. So when I met Wills, he seemed like the soul of respect. He was just like so kind and considerate and very proper. And I see that a lot of times with kids on the spectrum, that they've gone through enough training that they're rule oriented and they understand what the rules are for being respectful. So that's my impression of him. Is he just always that respectful at home?
He's pretty respectful, and in some ways we try to work at sort of loosening him up a little bit. And I will say, I mean, he's really respectful, but when I was in New York this week, I did get a text from Wills. He was riding around with his dad. He wasn't driving, but he was in the car with his dad and the dogs, and he saw a street called Crouch Street, and he took a picture of it, and he wrote to me and said, "Do you think they sell toilets on Crouch Street?" Ha, ha, ha. So I thought, well, that's pretty loose for Will. That's good. And I wrote back, I was like, that's hilarious. I said, if you see anything else, text it to me. So then he saw a sign that said, any electronic bowl, and then it had the symbols T. So like, that bad word.
Right.
And that starts with bull. And he thought that was funny. So he texted to me and he goes, "Can you believe that they would put, a curse word on a sign? Isn't that hysterical?" Yeah. So in those ways, I think he's loosening up. But he's rolling his eyes at me quite a bit now. And it's I got to say, it's probably true with maybe any kid, or maybe not. But, like Wills we were riding in the car. Everything's in the car and everything's iPad today. But we were in the car. We're in the car a lot. And I was talking away, and he said, "I'm mad at you for no reason. I'm sorry. I'm just so mad at you. I want you to stop talking." And I said, he goes, "I don't know why." He goes, "You think it's hormones?" Because he talks, because, we mentioned menopause. Every time I come in, I think I bring it up because it's just on my mind.
And mine.
Hours a day.
And mine.
Anyway.
Yes.
And I said, it might be hormones, or I might just be irritating you. He said, "But you're not doing anything wrong." And he was in tears.
Oh, bless his heart.
I feel like I'm hurting your feelings. On the other hand, I'm going to just explode if you don't stop talking.
What an amazing thing for him to be able to voice that.
It was great. And I said, "Wills, that doesn't hurt my feelings. I mean, the way you feel is the way you feel. It's absolutely fine." And it did remind me, though, how nervous I get when I think he's mad at me, and how I've got to let my stomach stay soft and let him be mad when he's mad, or let him be, because of that perfect thing I did with my husband too. Don't get mad. Don't you be scared. Don't you? And I want him to have all of his feelings, and if it includes he doesn't like me very much, that's part of
the job description, really, to be a mom. Yeah, it is. Well, that's pretty amazing.
So I said, "What'll make you feel more comfortable? Do you want to stop and get something to eat, or are you, or not something to eat, but stop and get out of the car for a little bit?" Or he said, "If I turned on my music, then I could just think and I can just look out the window." So he put the window down and he put his music on.
Wonderful.
And we got home, but he was really feeling just out of sorts and not. He just wanted to be with me. And that's perfectly understandable.
Well, and sometimes as women, I don't know, I'm not saying that you do this, but I certainly do. Like, I yap. I will go on and on and on.
I do. You hear me in here do it.
I love it when you're in here. But I will go on and on and on. And I noticed that, like, about a year ago, Jem said something to me about, "Mom, I would really like for it to be quiet right now. Would it be okay if it was really quiet for right now?" And I said, "Oh, sure, absolutely." And so I got quiet. And I saw my husband notice and think, "Oh, is that how that works?" You just have to ask, and she'll shut up for a while. Really, interesting
so
though, because I think a lot of us don't know to be able to ask for, and that he did, and that he voiced it and said, "I'm not sure why, but you're upsetting me right now," and to be able to come up with the answer to it, that's beautiful.
But it's a fine line, because he's on. We've mentioned that he's on his high school baseball team, and those kids are a little rougher than the other kids he's used to hanging out with. And so also when I was in New York, he called and I said, "Who are you playing tonight?" He goes, "I'm playing a bunch of geeks."
Oh.
And I did not like that. And I had never heard him call anybody such a thing. And I said, "Wow, Wills," I said, who is it you're exactly playing? What's the name of the school? And he told me, and he said, they're a bunch of math geeks. And then I didn't say anything. I just sat there for a minute thinking, I want him to be looser. I don't want him to be unkind. And so, but I don't want to be on top of him all the time. But what do I do here?
Right.
And all of a sudden he said, that's mean, right? I said, Wills, here's the thing. I said, those are your people.
Right.
You love math. You love science. I said, did you get that from another? He goes, well, all my team members were like, we're going to beat those math geeks, and they were really excited. And I said, just because they said that, maybe you don't have to say it or repeat it. And he said, he goes, I don't know what to think about it. So I said, well, can you talk to his therapist, who I call Catherine, I can't really say her. I said, can you talk to her about that on Monday, which is today, and ask her what she thinks?
There you go.
Because I don't want to be like, now don't be I can understand, and I can't at the same time. I don't want him to be a person that would make fun of anyone.
Yeah.
And he didn't like being made fun of. But on the other hand, he's going to be 16. He's with a bunch of kids. But that was a hard. And then, in the same week, though, and these are the things that I'm just dealing with as having a teenager. Sorry.
Right.
At Easter, we had some little kids coming to our house, and I said, "Should we get a bouncy?" He's like, "What?" No, and I said, "Well, the pool's cold, and I just wondered it would give something and let everybody get their energy out." And I said, "Maybe you would have fun just sitting around there throwing the ball to them in the bouncy." He's like, "Okay, well, Mom, if you want a bouncy for your 51st birthday, you get one." And it was kind of a mean thing to say. But it was also to the point, I clearly am too old to have a bouncy.
Right.
You won't. This is the third time you've asked me. Get one for your own birthday.
There you go.
But it had an edge to it.
Right.
So I'm trying to negotiate, So I said, how? He said, that hurt your feelings? I said, that was a little snarky.
So making him aware of it.
Yeah. He said,
key.
well, what should I have said? And he goes, you won't quit asking me about the bouncy.
Yeah.
And I said, well, just, I think you have to say, you got to stop asking me. You're making me mad, or whatever. But he was like, get one for yourself. And then he sort of walked out. But I have to know, and I'm going to ask in therapy this week, what should I do to make him, I want him relaxed enough to be himself. But I also want to teach him good morals, and I want him to be respectful.
Right. It's a fine line.
And he's so respectful that he sort of isn't messy ever. So I don't want to get in the way of it.
Yeah.
But I don't want him being a jerk.
It's a very fine line. Very fine line. Well, I think you're doing a great job.
I'm working on it. I don't know.
Well, and lovely to hear you say you don't know.
And I tell him that too. I'm like, boy, that really that hit me in this way, or this hit me in that way. But I got to tell you, this is new for me. I don't know, Will.
Right.
We're gonna have to talk about it.
Well, I think that's a gift too.
It's something I read and I've been told, but it's not something I intuitively knew. Because that's the other thing about parenting anybody, I guess, is that I thought I would know.
Yes, I thought I would too. I still have that expectation that I should know.
Me too.
As if when he came out, the informational manual downloaded in the back of my brain, and that I have it all, access to it all. It's not true.
Right.
It's not true. And we should also say too, before we let you go, that and I mentioned that if it was okay to bring it up, because I think that a lot of us look at you and go, man, you look so pulled together, and you're very honest about that you still have your stuff going on, and you do. You've got some really big stuff going on right now. That the next time we see you, there's the potential. It may not be until a little later in the month.
It's either next time or the time after. Right.
Okay, that you're going to look a little bit differently because you have some stuff going on. You want to tell us what's going on?
Yes, I have. We've discovered that I have skin cancer, pretty big, like a tumor under this part of my nose, but it's the size of a dime.
Wow.
But it's not bad news because it's not a melanoma. It's actually just a basal cell carcinoma, which is not life-threatening, but it grows on the nose. It grows a little faster than it would on any other part of the body. So you want to take it off because it's disfiguring, and you don't want it. And I'm not positive that it can turn into a squamish, which is a little worse, but I read it on the internet, so I'm not sure if that's true.
Okay.
But either way, my doctor wants it off.
Okay.
So I'm going on Wednesday to have the pre-op information, and they're going to tell me how fast it's grown since they saw me 2 weeks ago. And if it's grown fast, then I'm going to have the surgery right away.
Okay.
And I already know that they're going to have to do a cartilage graft for the septum here because it's here and down. And they're going to pretty severely is the only word I can think of. They're going to change the shape of my nose in a pretty radical way, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have stitching here and then up through here, and I'll be bandaged for a month, I think, a little under a month. And so I'll have quite a bit of bruising, but definitely stitching. I feel okay about it because I don't have to have radiation. I don't have to have, it's doable. Okay. It's really, really doable. I wish it weren't on my face, but I'm glad it's not right up here. It's underneath. Right. And again, it's a basal cell, so it's not anything serious. Right. And but the surgery's going to be, they're going to take cartilage from my ear and skin from my forehead. Right. So I guess I'll have to grow my bangs longer for the first time in a while. And yeah, so that's what's happening with that. But again, I'm a little anxious. I must be anxious about it because I dreamt last night that I got pulled over for a parking ticket and I was in jail having my nose done. I don't know why. In jail having my nose done. That was my dream when I woke up. So I'm consciously, seriously nervous about it. Right. But I don't feel. It's not the end of way worse things have happened than that.
But it's still, I've said before on the show that I felt when my son was diagnosed with autism, because I have this, written shadow belief somewhere that into every life a little rain will fall, right? Of course. And, and as the older I get, the more I go, okay, it's more than rain. It's like a little torrential downpour from time to time. And my husband calls it a poop storm that comes. Only he doesn't use the word poop. Right. But I thought when my son was diagnosed with autism, well, then that's our fair share. Thank you. We've got our helping. We're done. Nothing else. We're impervious now. Right. Nothing else should or would or could happen to us. Right. And that, of course, is completely wrong. Autism families have multiple things going on. Yes. We talked about when I shaved my head, and people ask, so you shaved your head for autism? Well, I shaved my head for Autism Awareness Month for doing compassion in action, but the action that I chose was to shave my head for a dad who had brain cancer. And people said, I don't understand. And I kept on saying, because the world is happening, and it'd be lovely if it was this little pod in autism where all there was, but there's so many parents out there who are dealing with autism and cancer and autism and other things. Mm-hmm. We don't exist on our own little planet, and we need the world to see that.
Right. And I think too, for families who have anybody with a disability, there's always the financial issue. It's huge, and I think that's what we have to remember too, is that a lot of families are dealing with huge financial issues.
Absolutely.
That's so scary.
And for us all to remember, even when we're looking at other people, everybody's got stuff going on. Everybody's got stuff going on, and even when you think I think everybody looks at you, and I don't think anybody thinks, oh, you're going through that on top of everything else.
Well, that's hilarious, because when I was in New York, I saw my editor. I was seeing. I was with Simon Schuster. I was doing some of my work on my book, too, not just there for the conference. And so we were having a glass of wine at a bar, like sort of a wine bar late. And somehow we started laughing because we were talking about the issues in the book and my marriage issues and my trying to be perfect. And she was like, okay, so you had, you were abused as a child. You have a child with autism. And the more we talked about it, your marriage was in the toilet. We just laughed. And I don't know what got us laughing so hard. Right. I was like, and she's like, now you have cancer on your nose. Right. And we were like, ah. And I think it's just sort of, it's like, and I have to say, all that happened. But
and look at you anyway.
Well, sometimes.
You're wearing it well.
Sometimes.
Well, and you're keeping a sense of humor about it, and you're a delight.
And I do have plenty of tears, and it's a big mess sometimes.
Yeah. But you're willing to share that with all of us so that we all go, okay, I'm here and I'm part of this experience too, and it isn't perfect.
Well, by sharing it, people share with me. Yeah. And there were these people in New York, and I think they're probably in Boston too, but they had these shirts that said a free hug. Right after the whole Boston thing, so it was on Saturday, and I was in Columbus Circle, and they just were standing with their arms out, and I said, I'll take a free hug, so then I hugged them. But what I realized was they got hugged back. Yes. And I think that's what it is about being a mess. It's like, I'm a mess now, and then maybe you're a mess and you need my hug, and then it all goes around. Yeah. So to not admit, and that's what I did for many years, I didn't admit, like, I'm an absolute mess.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm right there with you. I'm a mess.
Too.
I'm a mess. I'm a bald, sweaty
You're
mess.
A bald, sweaty mess.
There we have it. A bald, sweaty, perimenopausal mess. There we go. We're all in this together, right? The ship is sinking, but we're all bailing together and having a good laugh about it.
And having a good laugh, and trying to be as healthy as we can, emotionally and whatever, as we can.
And show up for ourselves and for our kids and for the significant people in our lives.
And where there's help, take the help, grab the help, and not isolate.
Absolutely.
Which is my big deal, is that I isolate, so don't do that.
Sister.
Don't do it, sister.
We are sisters from another mother, is what we are. Okay. Well, we have to let you go because we have to bring Alex in here.
Great.
But as we go, we're going to go to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who has started his early intensive behavior. And we're looking this week, he's about 10 months into his first year of ABA therapy, growing, and his sentences are getting longer and longer. But sometimes, that means you get some behavior that comes along with it too, because when our kids grow, they're going to try on new behaviors. So take a look. This is the A Word.
Do you think Jack knows what's happening today?
Not a clue. We ask him where the baby was, and sometimes he points here, and sometimes he just points here and says belly button. So he's either getting a baby sister or a belly button. He's not sure.
Good. What about this one? It's a rooster. Yeah. Another one. Sure. Which one do you want? Both. Okay. Here you go.
Jessica gave Jack Riley a partial vocal prompt to get him to ask instead of demand the puzzle from her. Last week, she had to prompt him by saying,
Say, can I? Sure.
But now she only makes the sound to get him to ask. Eventually, he will need no prompting.
Case. Case? Yes, I want case. Case. Yes, you can. There you go. Should we dance and sing? Should we say head, shoulders, knees, and toes? Yeah? Okay, let's sing the song first, though. Sing song first. Ready? Head. Head. Sing first, and then Dumbo. Sing first.
Now that Jack Riley has language, he negotiates with Jessica instead of tantruming or crying like he would have.
Eyes and ears and nose and good. Head, shoulders, knees and toes. Whoa! You almost ate there. Yeah, you finished the song. Okay, come here. Whee! Whoa! It's like you're Superman, huh? It's like you're Superman. Come here. Jack Riley, come here. Come here. Thank you. Sit down. No. No. Jack Riley. No, look at my eyes. No, sit down chair. No, sit down chair. No, sit down chair. No, Jack Riley, you need to sit down chair. Thank you. Oh. Thanks. Good boy. High fives for good sitting. Thank you.
What happened?
That I was actually reading notes from other therapists that are on his team that he's been non-compliant when it comes to sitting in the chair. But right now it just seemed like he didn't want to do it because you asked him to do it, or I asked him to do it. And then I was prompting him to sit in the chair. But then once I just backed off, he sat on his own, like it's on his own terms, basically. But I didn't want him to get away with, if I asked him to do something, he has to do it. And that applies to when I ask him to do other things too, so that he doesn't learn that if I just ask him something and don't follow through, then I don't have to listen to Jessica. I'll just listen to her whenever I feel like it.
Right.
And he's been really exercising just because he can vocalize what he wants now. He wants it every time he asks for something, and then if you don't give it to him, then that's what happens. I do want him to learn that just because he asks nicely doesn't mean he'll get everything every time.
Are you excited? You excited?
He's sleeping.
Are you sleeping?
So what time are you going to leave, Mike?
We have OT at 11.
Oh, you still have OT today?
Yeah.
Doesn't it feel like it closed?
Yeah, well, that's the life of That's our life now.
Let's go back out.
I'm gonna go. I gotta go take a shower because we're gonna have a baby. See you later.
Later.
Okay, that's the A word. I talk all the time about how much I love this show and how much I love the dad. And I love that moment when, he's there and the hair's a little bit on end and he says, got an OT at 11 and says, that's the life, right? Because that's the reality. And I will say that for those of you who are watching who have not yet been able to start your ABA program and you watch with a certain amount of heaviness in your heart about, oh man, why don't we have this for our child? And I'm going to say, again, go check out our blog because you don't have to be the victim anymore and just be left out. If there are no professionals and there's no funding, you can teach yourself using the IBT videos and they're 50% off right now. So go to our blog and check that out. 50% off and learn the things that the therapists know. But for those of you who watch and see that, and think, wow, how could anybody ever complain? I want you to know that as much as you want an ABA program, when you get it, and I believe that it will come to you at some point, when you get it, it's a tough road. There's nothing easy about it. Even if you've solved the funding, there's nothing easy about it, and it takes a toll on the family, and it really is keeping a schedule that is really tight for a number of years. And there are lots of jokes about it within the community of people who do that about, my life goes on a circuit of, I go to OT, I go to speech, I got to be home for the ABA therapist. It really is a commitment, not something to be taken lightly. And of course, he is making fun of it because we all do, because what else are you going to do? But please know that they are getting it done and that is part of the process. And for those of you who are in it, and finding that way of managing the schedule, my goodness, over the years I've seen parents who handled it in so many different ways. We had a clipboard that hung in our house that, and here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, I don't know if they do this in all offices, but at the Tarzana headquarters, we had weeks 1 and 2, and then they would be A's and B's. So we would constantly talk about, is this a 1A week? Because I think we're supposed to be at home for therapy if it's a 1A week, but if it's a 1B week, so it's not just Tuesday anymore. Is it a Tuesday 1A, or is it a Tuesday 2B, or is it oh my goodness, right? And you had to keep track of it. And that was before I had a smartphone. So we had the grid on the clipboard that hung on the wall, and I would constantly refer to the clipboard. And anything else that was relevant had to go on the clipboard. So if there was a meeting, it went on the clipboard. My husband's schedule would go on the clipboard, and I was constantly organizing. Now, there was another dad that I met that had one of those huge calendars that took up a whole wall in his dining room, and that it was a dry erase thing, so that each month he would do erase it all and put the numbers for the dates, and he would write down when they would have therapy. And part of the reason why he did that was because in the course of, if you're having 40 hours of therapy a week, right, times 4 weeks, so that's 160 hours of therapy to keep track of in a month, in addition to everything else that you're doing, right? The dental appointments and the doctor's appointments, and if you're both working and what that is, and all those other appointments, plus the speech and the OT, it's a lot, right? And in the course of 160 hours, it's very likely that somebody is going to have a flat tire, or somebody's going to be a little bit late, or somebody's going to get sick, right? And keeping track of all that can be a paperwork nightmare. And so what he would do is he would have it on the schedule, and it would all be in one color. And when this therapist showed up, and he'd put the little green check mark, or if they didn't, he would circle and put it in red so that he had it for his notes, so that he kept track in a really beautiful way that took up his whole dining room wall. But you got to find your way of making it work, of keeping the schedule, because I remember at least once I messed up and wasn't where I was supposed to be. It was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and my child lost those hours of therapy. And you only have to have that happen once or twice, and you go, okay, seriously, I got to do this in a different way. And of course, our funding source, if you canceled, I think it was if you canceled more than once within a certain period of time, then you had to pay for the session. So your child didn't get the session and you had to pay for it. Right? That was our funding source, not CARD, but our funding source that did that. So Really important that you find your way of keeping the paperwork and your way of keeping the schedule so that you know where you are. A very big deal. But I encourage you to check out the A Word so that you can see how that family deals with it, how they keep the schedule, how they keep it together. We were just talking with Monica Holloway about how you survive, how they survive as a couple, how they survive as people, how they remember to put their needs in the list of things that have to be done. So you can check out the A Word. They have their own, YouTube site that you can go to and watch all of the episodes. You know, in the beginning when they started the series, I would always talk to people about because the value will come when they've got like 2 years of this, so that you can look and see where he is now, and you can go back and watch the first episode and you can compare. Well, there's 2 years of episodes now. Excuse me. So I inhaled a floaty. Check it out. And you can search different topics. You can see how they've dealt with the food sensitivity issues that he has a problem with. You can see how he's talking now, because the child is talking a blue streak. And you can see how they dealt with toileting, and really the tremendous arc of ABA when his baby sister comes. It's truly a wonderful episode. It's on YouTube. It's all free to be able to watch. Send it to people that you know who want to know what it is that you're doing at home, or what it is you're trying to do. If you're doing a fundraiser and trying to have ABA in your home and raise money for it, say to people, look, this is what we want to be doing. This is it right here. This is how you get this done. Really tremendous. I also, we've got a couple of different announcements here, and I'm not sure whether we're having Alex, whether he's been delayed or is coming. We'll check in on that. Sort of wish I hadn't said goodbye to Monica. But in any case, I've got a couple of different announcements coming up, but the first of which that we're going to be talking about the rest of this hour is the fact that we have a new segment that is coming up with Temple Grandin. We're going to air that on May 7th, but I need your questions for Temple. If you have a question that you want to ask Temple Grandin, I need you to send them in to me today, because I have an opportunity to sit down with Temple tomorrow. So I need your questions ASAP. If you've got anything you want to ask Temple Grandin, you can send them to us on Facebook. You can send them to us via the live feature. You can email me. But I need your questions for Temple Grandin for tomorrow. And then we'll show you that episode on May 7th. So send them off to me, okay? We're going to take a break and come back and talk about the stress tip and about a really exciting thing that's being done here locally in Los Angeles for individuals who have disabilities for the prom. Very exciting story. So stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. We're here doing allergy-free cooking, and I brought my sister with me today.
Jamie Davis, thanks for having me.
A lot of people are asking about an allergy-free breakfast, and breakfast can be full of crap.
But it's full of crap, and it's hard to do. We don't have time in the morning. We're in a hurry.
We're going completely nut-free. The recipe is not
personality. We can't do anything about.
Yeah, can't do anything about that. So we're going to start off first with. I'm using sorghum and brown rice flour. I find the texture good, and I've added some flaxseed meal. We talked about that last time, flaxseed meal for poop. Almost every one of our kids has a poop issue. What's next on the recipe is the quinoa flakes, baking powder, cinnamon, and the xanthan gum. It brings the glutinous texture back into the flour, and often what happens with these recipes is they can fall apart. This one holds up nicely. I like it. For the folks that are egg-free, we have a ton of egg replacers. One of those can be the arrowroot starch or bringing back some additional flaxseed. So there's a lot of options to go eggless, but we're going to go egg-full in this one. For sweetener, I use the maple syrup. I stay away from refined sugar. What I'm adding now is the coconut milk, maple syrup, and a little bit of the coconut oil. And we're going to add in the raisins, craisins, and chocolate chips at the end. I find that chocolate chips can coax people to eat some really amazing things. When we started, Jeff had 42 food allergies, so we had to get creative in how we cooked. So nuts were a big, big issue. What I like now is that he can tolerate so many more things after we start doing this diet. So let me show you how you can deal with this sticky stuff here. You get your fingers really wet, and you can push it down. So my oven has been preheated. It's at 350 degrees. So we're going to just throw this in. Like I said, I like it around 23 minutes. And the magic oven says, I'm done. Looks like, don't you love magic ovens? They're awesome. There we go. Pops right out. The texture of these, and it's so pretty. It looks almost like a big chocolate chip cookie, but you actually made it healthy. But you can be my guinea pig. Tell me what you think.
It looks really good.
Doesn't it? So the textures and the colors in there are just beautiful. So the raisins are for you, the chocolate chips are for your kid.
I can't believe it's gluten-free.
I know, right? It doesn't taste like, crap. We're wrapping up another cooking show. If you have feedback, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. We're, of course, on Facebook. You could go to facebook.com/autismlive. And of course, Talkin' Now has thousands of recipes. Join me there, and we can cook some more later on. So thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Guess who I found in the studio?
I was trolling the halls and I dropped by and I just wanted to see how your hair's growing.
Yes, and it is growing. But so for those of you who are only watch on Monday, Nancy Alspaugh Jackson, Executive Director of Autism Care and Treatment Today, is here. And she and I do a segment together on Wednesdays called Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy.
Right.
So thrilled to have you here because
so
Alex got called away to be on set so that he is not going to be here.
Okay.
First we said he was going to be here, then he wasn't going to be here, then he was going to be here. Now he's officially not here.
All right. I'm wondering if there's green in my teeth because I just drank one of those green smoothies.
No, I am not seeing green on your teeth at all.
Okay, I didn't do
a
check before we get going on the webcast.
No.
I said you reminded me a little bit of Brigitte Nielsen. No, Annie Lennox.
Oh, I got that a little bit, but I think I'm I was saying that I look like Sinead O'Connor if she ate a troop of Girl Scouts.
Well, Annie Lennox to me looks incredible.
Yeah.
And she's got a white, very close shaven, hairstyle.
Yes, that's true. And I have been getting
dark
that a lot.
eyes. And I think it's more of an Annie Lennox.
It was really interesting to be at the walk because nobody recognized me.
Oh, really?
And I still had the microphone and I was walking up to people and we got some great reaction shots of people. I walked up to Matt Asner, who looks fabulous and has lost 50 pounds.
Good for him.
He looks really great. And I walked up and I said, well, hello, Mr. Skinny. And he said, excuse me? And I said, how fabulous do you look? You look absolutely, how much weight have you lost? And he was like, well, I've lost some weight. He's standing in the middle of the thing at the walk. And I said, oh, Matt. And I pulled off my hat because I had a blue hat on, to protect from the sun. And I said, it's Shannon from Autism Live. And he said, oh, my goodness. He said, he said, I thought, here's this woman. I have no idea who she is. And she knows I lost weight. And, but everybody was kind of that way. And you were so missed at the walk, but you had such a busy week.
It was a crazy busy week being in Sacramento. And on Wednesday, Julie Kornack, who is the public policy analyst from Center for Autism and Related Disorders, is going to join us, and we're going to talk about our trip to Sacramento and all the great legislators we met, including the great Senator Darrell Steinberg, who is president of the Senate and one of the biggest champions of our children.
Truly wonderful.
And what I think what he's trying to do here is to make California the model of what can be done. And hopefully he has national aspirations because he's terming out of the Senate. And let me tell you, if he's going to make if he's going to make a run for the big White House, I'm there, buddy.
And I'm right there with you.
Okay.
And I actually ran into, for the first time, I got to meet Shelley Hendricks at the walk, face to face.
Yes.
And she said that she had seen you and that she was poking you when you were on the steps of the Capitol. And then he finally turned around and said, who was poking me? Oh, it's Shelley Hendricks.
Right.
I was not aware of the fact that California is the only state who has declared an emergency for autism.
Yes.
I was not aware of that.
Yes.
This is how clueless I am. But you guys are going to talk about all that with us on Wednesday.
All that and all the great activism and advocacy and, the kinds of things that everyone at home, because I know sometimes it can be a little bit like, we don't want to get into being policy wonks. We don't want to get into talking about bills and legislative things that the public can't really understand or support. However, I do think it's important to know which legislators are doing things for our children. And there's two in particular in San Diego County that I met that they're senators, that we'll talk to you about, state senators, and just all the great work that's being done in Sacramento for our kids.
Great. So we're going to talk about that on the show on Wednesday. And that was your Wednesday last week. But then on Thursday, you did something pretty exciting.
On Thursday, I attended attended the play on the spectrum, and we were fortunate enough, I guess, 2 weeks ago to have the playwright, Ken, you said his name better than me. Lezebnik. We had Iris, the girl who played Iris, who, gosh, her name, is it Virginia? Virginia.
Yes.
And we had the young actor who plays Mac.
Danny Chiquette, I think, was his...
Dan Chiquette.
Chiquette.
Yes.
And it was Virginia Newcomb.
Virginia Newcomb. Okay.
Yes.
All I can say is, if you have a chance to go see this, because the run, I think, is sometime at the end of this week, go.
Okay.
Go. If you are in the LA area, call the Fountain Theater.
Okay.
Get tickets if they're available. I have rarely been so moved by a play as I was by this one.
Wow.
I have rarely been so inspired by performances.
Wow.
And I wrote Ken an email and said, I saw myself in the mother.
Yeah.
Who does, she's remarkable, and she'd like to come join us and talk about it. And the director has a child with autism, and she teaches theater at the Help Group. She did a magnificent job. And I just hope this play goes on to other places because it's such an important work about what exactly is a disability when it comes to autism, and seeing these two young people fall in love, a girl with severe limitations and a very high-functioning Asperger's young man, and the conflict that causes. It raises some very interesting philosophical questions for us, and it's a real celebration of being on the spectrum. And I love that about it. And the message at the end is really love conquers all.
Okay. I do. I'm trying to get a babysitter so that I can go to see it with my husband. And I'm really excited about it. We've been talking about some of the different things having to do with it throughout the week and asking people about the whole question about if you could take a pill to remove the autism, would you? But I'll tell you the thing that has haunted me from when we had them on was talking about the mother in the play who has worked so hard to help her son to get as far as he can to move through the neurotypical world, and the fact that he chooses to fall in love. We don't ever choose to who we fall in love with, but that he falls in love with a girl who is
nonverbal,
pronounced
severe
on the spectrum,
very pronounced,
and that
but brilliant.
And that the mom has a hard time with that. That never occurred to me, and that has been taunting me all this week, thinking about, so if at some point Jem comes home and who he has fallen in love with is somebody who, and we've worked to get rid of some of the stims that prevent him from moving through the world. And yet if he falls in love with somebody like that, how will I react? Will I be able to be open-minded enough? And I sure hope I will, but that thought never occurred to me.
That it caused me to wrestle with a lot of things, and there is a scene in the play where the mother confronts Iris. Iris confronts the mother. And Iris says, I love him for everything he is. You don't love his autism.
Wow.
And the mother says, don't tell me what I don't love. I have spent 21 years sacrificing, doing everything I can for my son. Don't tell me about love. And that the tears were running down my face. And she said, the world out there is neurotypical. And that's what I say to people. It's all fine and well, but we cannot isolate our children. The world is a neurotypical world. We need to give them every tool they can to go out into that world, because we can't hide. And many of us will be gone when we're all going to be gone at some point, and our children are going to have to fend for themselves. We're going to have, of course, a support system, we hope, but we don't know. So getting your child to be as fully functioning while we are working, on the other hand, of getting society more accepting of them. So I think it's kind of it's a dual thing. I think it's getting our kids to be as high functioning as they can be to compete in the world, and then to get the world to be as accepting and understanding of them. And I believe we're really on the cusp of a great sea change in America, where people are going to be more accepting of individuals with ASDs, and we're going to be educating them more and more.
I agree. And I think, both of us come from families that had other other ability issues, other ability challenges.
Down syndrome from my brother.
And my mother was born clubfoot, and so my mother was on crutches or in a wheelchair for a lot of my growing up. And, the stories from our family, when my mother, braces on both of her legs when she was a child, and she still was a cheerleader with the braces on, played basketball.
Good for her.
So we were always
now
taught.
I know where you got that hood.
Well, I'm telling you, and we were always taught it doesn't matter what you have going on, you still find a way. You bend the world to you, and you bend yourself to the world. You do what you want to do, and you don't let anything stop you.
And that's what I love. Temple Grandin, Helen Keller. These to me are the great pioneers of literally civil rights in the disability movement. And what they did was they made the world listen.
Yeah.
And they learned to function in the world while still being who they are.
Yeah.
And I think I can't wait. I'm going to listen in with Temple tomorrow. I hope I can just say hi to her.
Come be with us if you want to be here with us, because we're going to be talking with Temple again tomorrow. I was saying to people we're not going to air it until May 7th, but we're recording with Temple tomorrow. So if you have questions, send them in. But come and be here with me to do that, please.
Well, I'll talk to you about that. Okay. I've got, Laura Marquin, our Director of Programs and Development, is moving on.
Yes.
And I've got my right arm chopped off right now. So I've got a lot going on. But I would love to I'm going to definitely tune in and listen to her when you're doing the interview. And I think she's just a great example of how you can remain on the spectrum and be brilliant and contributing and also help change society's attitudes. And this is something I'd love to hear from our moms and dads out there. How do you feel about the fact that some people in the autism community say, accept us the way we are. Yet, as parents, we're always striving to make them fit into that neurotypical world. Has that caused you conflict? How do you feel about that? I think it's important to let our parents' voices be heard.
Absolutely. Because I do feel like it's like dealing with two separate issues.
It is. It is.
And I know we've talked about before that we're somewhere in the middle now with our kids.
Somewhere in the middle.
We're in that tween thing.
Right.
Where our kids aren't at the point where they're getting a recovered diagnosis. We don't have the little kids. We've got a lot of good things going on, but where do we fit in this puzzle?
Right. That's a hard piece. And then the other thing that I often say to people that say, accept us on the autism spectrum, there's nothing wrong with us. I don't say there's anything wrong with you. But working at ACT Today, where we get grant requests from a parent who has a child that has such severe self-stimulatory behaviors that he's blinded himself in one eye from poking his eye and picking at it, that now he needs eye surgery as well as behavior therapy. When you get some of the hardcore cases that we get at ACT Today, no parent in the world would say, leave that child like that.
Absolutely not. And one of the things that I say in the last couple of years, as I've been, talking more about this, and there will be individuals on the spectrum who come up to me and say, I'm offended when you say this, because I've used the expression, the battle against autism. They say, that's offensive. Stop saying that. And I always say to them, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I've been so insensitive to not mention that I'm not talking about your kind of autism. The fact that you can sit here and say to me, I am offended, or write me an email or post something on my page to say that you're offended, tells me it's not the same kind of autism that I'm talking about. Because I'm talking about the one that disables you, not the one where you're able to say, I am offended by that. If my child gets to that point, that's all good.
Well, I said to Dan on after the show, because I was part of a panel discussion with Dr. Volker from the HELP group and Pam, who runs all the schools there, and they're going to come on our show too. Cool. But I said to Dan, I've met Asperger's people more you are more Asperger's than most Asperger's people I've met. And even in real life, and Dan's like, I know, aren't I kind of Aspie? And I'm like, you're more Aspie than Alex Plant.
Yes.
Way more.
Yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting.
But brilliant performances
I'm
and
so
really
happy to hear
moving.
that. We're going to try to get there to see that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, we should take a short break and then we'll come back with more. And our live feature is open now, so if you have questions for Nancy or I, feel free to write in. Stick with us.
Hi everyone, everyone, welcome back. It's April, which means it's also spring. And what we're going to be doing today is making our very own chia pets. What's cool about this project, it's an activity that you can revisit with your family as you watch it grow and change. All right, now that I piqued your interest, let's get to it. The materials we'll be needing are water, dirt, arts and craft materials, chia seeds, a container, and nylon. So let's get started. It's super easy. All you're going to do is you're going to take an old pair of nylons that you have, you're going to cut off the toe, and what you're going to do is you're going to take some of your chia seeds and sprinkle them at the very bottom. We don't need too much, just a little bit. And then once I've got my chia seeds there, I'm going to take my dirt and pour that in. And we want to make sure that we've got quite a bit in there. You want to keep this tail. What this does is acts as a way to soak up the water to feed your little chia plant. So I'm going to take the bottom now. I'm going to tie this into a knot. So now that I've got this little guy, now it's time to decorate him. And you can decorate him however you feel like. What I did is that I made some little features out of felt that I'm going to add to my little guy to give him a face. Now that I've got them all decorated, I'm going to pour some water into my container and make sure my tail is all nice and soaked up in there. And here's my little buddy. I made a mouse, but you can always make whatever kind of creature your child finds super reinforcing. Make sure they like the little animal that you make so they'll want to come back and revisit him. As you can see right now, he's a little ball, but hopefully, keeping your fingers crossed, in a week he'll have some hair. With the snap of my fingers, we're going to go through a week in a few seconds. And oh my gosh, this little guy has changed quite a bit. Can you see how? Yeah, he's got some hair now. You can have your kids describe how this little guy looks to their friends, and you can even work on body parts by having them label all the features that this little guy has on his face. So let's see, what does he have? He's got eyes, a nose, a mouth, and ears. What do you think will happen to him if I stop watering him? Yeah, he probably won't be growing any more hair if I did that. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity. I know I did. Tune in next time, okay? And until then, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest, Nancy Alspaugh Jackson.
I'm not a very special guest. I'm here all the time.
You're here all the time, but it's Monday, and you were walking
here on Monday.
You were walking by
to talk about our show on Wednesday,
right? And we were like, "Come in, sit down." And of course, it is so typical of you that you're sitting here and you look lovely and our camera ready. Anybody else that I said come in and come on and be on the show would have been
I want you to know. Last week, I think I put on makeup today and kind of did myself because last week I had an allergic reaction to pollen or horse dander, and we do have 2.5 horses. We have a miniature horse, which is the half,
which is always. And I go half. How can you have a half a horse? That's the godfather.
My autistic son Wyatt loves to ride our big paint horse, as do all his friends with autism. Yeah. And I guess grooming and the pollen. My eyes swelled up so bad. Last week I looked like I don't know. I couldn't even see. Wow. So that's over, thank God. And I was just telling you that some little girls dream of growing up to being actress, an Academy Award, or raising a family or whatever. I dreamed of being able to testify before Congress. So testifying before our legislative committee last week was a dream come true for me.
It was on the bucket list for you.
It was on the bucket list, but then it was such a crazy week because Boston happened, and I ran the Boston Marathon, and I worked at WBZ for 10 years, and many of my friends were covering the tragedy, and I think it just was a jolt to all of us, like September 11th. But you know what we learned? Don't mess. I was about to say something else. With Boston.
Yeah, no kidding.
Don't mess with Boston.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrorists, you better pick don't pick any city in America, but don't ever pick a city like Boston.
I had woken up, I guess, I don't know what morning it was, when it had been the whole night thing that I had been unaware, and I woke up and I always look at Facebook to see what's going on. I don't go to a news thing, I look at Facebook to see what you guys have going on. And somebody said, well, we've learned one thing overnight, that, you don't want to mess with Boston because they will shut the city down and hunt your butt down.
They will hunt you down, and they will get you.
And they will get you.
Because Boston takes care of its own.
Well, and Boston is a big deal to all of us here.
I love that city.
Of course, Emily is from Boston, our technical director extraordinaire.
Yes.
And I spent a year living in Boston when I was a child. The year from 4 to 5, right before I started kindergarten, we lived in Boston. My dad worked there. It was in television there, but I don't think at WBZ. I think at WGN maybe. That's Mary Tyler Moore.
WGBH. I don't know. There's a bunch of them.
One of them. I'll ask my sister which one.
WCBE. We'll find out.
You know what my dad did? He was the sound person for Romper Room. So when they would say Mr. Music, please, my mother would have it on and she would go, that's Daddy.
All right.
Daddy's Mr. Music.
Mr. Music.
So I got to be on the Bozo Show. And those are my first memories of being in Boston.
Wow.
As a kid.
Great. Yeah. Well, I had the pleasure of working with Mr. Tom Bergeron there, who has become a huge autism supporter and done a lot for Act Today. Yeah. And Tom started his career in radio there. Wow. And his 2 daughters were back there, or one daughter. And so we were a little concerned, but she was fine. And, everybody we know is okay. Yeah. I think now the healing process has to begin for the victims of all, everything. And our prayers our good energy has to go their way.
Well, and of course, and the tragedy in Texas as well.
Horrible.
They're still trying to figure out exactly what happened.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So real life goes on while we're here,
But it was a not fun week, and I'm glad you started a new week.
Yeah, it's a nice new week, I think, for everybody.
And a little bit more to the spring side.
Yeah.
Really lovely weather, a little warm here.
Right.
I have to say, since you brought up Tom Bergeron,
yes,
that we've talked a little bit about on the show before, but I think one of the greatest tools that there is for our kids is watching America's Funniest Home Videos.
Laughter.
There's laughter, so you can teach humor when you're watching that, but also causation. That that you do this and the effect of it. And they have a little segment on the show sometimes where they'll do a quiz with people to say, what do you think is going to happen, where they freeze the tape.
Oh.
And you can do that yourself. And America's Funniest Home Video is on all times of the day and night.
ABC Family.
Yeah. I mean, so you can tape it and watch it and pause it and say, what do you think is going to happen before it happens?
I'll have to try that.
Where do you think the ball is going to hit? Or what do you think they're feeling or whatever? And a great way to teach humor. What will be the funniest thing if it happens?
Okay. Wyatt loves cats and he loves dogs.
Well.
So, maybe some of those humor sections. But we are honoring, just so I don't forget, we are honoring Mr. Vin DeBona. Talk about a Bostonian, a well-known Bostonian. Vin DeBona started his career in Boston.
Wow.
He is the creator of America's Funniest Home Videos, along with many other television shows. He was executive producer on MacGyver and many things.
Wow.
He is going to be honored by Act Today with our Activist Award on October 6th at Denim and Diamonds for Autism.
Oh, that's wonderful.
At the Four Seasons in Westlake, and we'll give information about that. And I'm hoping we can have Vin on the show on Let's Talk Autism, because he does have some affected family members, or they were believed to be on the spectrum, but I believe it was a different disability. But he's really one of those incredibly philanthropic people that doesn't have to do what he does, but he's on the board of many organizations, including the Smithsonian. They have an exhibit now on America's Funniest Home Videos, because it's such a cultural
it is,
and it's really a part of our American culture. So Vin DeBona, great man. We're honoring him with the Activist Award, and we'll have him as a guest coming up.
We'd love that. And we got to interview him when we were on the red carpet for Denim and Diamonds last year.
Yes.
His wife is delightful too.
Yes, she's also
people.
very civic-minded.
And I'm not a good interviewer. I fully admit that.
Yes, you are.
I'm not.
Don't say that.
And then what happens is that I go, okay, so whatever, and then I put the mic down and I go, okay, now let's talk about this or whatever. And I said to him, I said, I just want to thank you, because your show has been such a gift that whatever else would happen the rest of the week. On Sunday night, we would sit down as a family after bath time. We still do this. Now it's a shower. We sit down and we watch America's Funniest Home Video to put the rest of the week, done and move on to the new week. And my husband and I get to laugh with our child. And there are so many other things. But I said, the gift of laughter after everything else you go through, and to hear my son giggle, it's just nothing better.
I'll never forget when Wyatt started giggling and smiling.
Yeah.
Because as a toddler, when he lost skills, the first year and a half, he was typically developing. Yeah. And then as he stopped giggling and laughing, I didn't realize it, until he was about 2.5, almost 3. And I realized this child doesn't laugh or smile. Yeah. And when they start that process again, it's amazing. So precious, and it's such a gift that we get back when they can start that humor and that relational stuff.
Absolutely, and we got that back from watching America's Funniest Home Videos. So I'm a huge fan of his, and I got all weepy on the red carpet telling him that, and his wife was like, "That's wonderful. We love hearing that." And I totally.
Well, that's what producers like him live for.
Well, and it was sincere. I was like, "Somebody take the microphone. Let's talk about the fact that you did me this huge favor." So as if it was specifically for me, having my little experience. Anyway, we're out of time. Okay. I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. Maybe we'll even talk about it on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
There's an organization here that's doing a special prom that is for individuals who are facing different challenges. And so we'll talk about that tomorrow. But I want to remind everybody as we leave that we're going to be doing a segment with Temple Grandin tomorrow morning, so I need your questions. You can write them in on the live feature, or you can send them in on Facebook. If you have a question that you would like to ask Temple, I'm gonna ask them all tomorrow. We'll air that episode on May 7th, so please get them to us. I want to take a second to thank you for breezing in and being with me this morning.
Thank you for letting me crash. And I just think Temple Grandin is one of my top admired women, and the fact that she is being interviewed by you on a regular basis, I just think shows what an amazing interviewer you are. It
was very exciting to me that she just called me yesterday because we were tweaking the time. So I was like, "Hi, Temple."
That's like Michelle Obama calling you up, or
that's
Hillary
my
Clinton.
Bucket list.
That's your bucket list.
That I'm like, "Hi, Temple, how are things?" Is very much.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're out of time. We'll be back tomorrow. We also have Evelyn Gould with us tomorrow. So if you have questions for Evelyn, we'll be covering that as well.
And I'll see you guys on Wednesday, and just be the change you want to see in the world, and the magic happens.
Absolutely. And give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.